Barty's here! Oh my god, it's Barty! Who doesn't remember Barty? Bartolomeus. The evil primal. Thank God there's just not a large pool of famous primals and eidolons by this point that we could choose from. No. Here comes Barty to ruin our day. I want to address something. Welcome back. My name is Breach. And we've been covering the journey through FF13 as well as all the Final Fantasies, the single-player ones, as we've progressed day by day and how my opinion changes and forms over how the game goes. Right now in FF13, we are full story mode. The combat is great. I've discussed it in another video, and I'm happy with it. What I'm really into now is the story. And some people are really... the feedback I get, I do not check the comments, I get the feedback from my team, is how does he like snow? Listen. Okay, if I was a lifelong Final Fantasy fan, which I wasn't, I only started a couple of years ago, right? And I was anticipating on the edge of my seat, like I have done a billion times with many other games, the release of this game. And I was picturing in my mind from trailers and all that about what journey, what magnificent, magical quest I was going to go on. And I got presented with snow and lightning, I would not like them. Okay? I am happy to believe that wholeheartedly. But like, what is this teen Twilight Dawson's Creek nonsense? Oh, it's so cheesy. It's so like, I am 13 and this is deep. It's all those cliches all rolled into one. Yes, it is. 100%. However, I'm not in that position. I'm not. And... it walks a fine line, is what I will say. I will extend the olive branch. Yes, it walks a fine line. Destiny 2's Lightfall campaign has something very similar. It has these sort of Greek god-esque type characters, if you've not played it, who are just ridiculous, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I couldn't stand them, and I forced myself to watch all the cutscenes because I needed to critique them. If I skip... my critique is it's so bad I skipped it. Without, like, knowing, does it get better? Does it improve? Does it get worse? All these things are interesting to me as somebody who critiques what's going on, so I forced myself to watch them. Let me put it this way. In Destiny 2's Lightfall campaign, I am at the last boss, and I have been there for 9 months, I would guess, at this point. Because I just cannot bring myself to play anymore. Because it was too much. And that was... I know, after what I just said, that sounds Hippocratic. But it's the truth. I could no longer play. I was like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And it was painful, but I'm not in that position. And there is a part of me, and if you don't know me and you haven't followed me for very long, I am a massive movie buff. I love watching movies. I will watch everything from Mean Girls to Twilight to B-movie horrors, not just the big blockbusters. I will watch, and I'm that guy who will browse, like, what's the 90-minute movies on Netflix, and I don't know what this is, I don't really know who the actors are, but I'll crack it on, and most of the time I have a good time, even if the movie's kind of trash. And from that perspective, I really enjoy these characters, because I just can't wait to see what they're going to do next. I can't. I'm so, like, giddy when Snow rolls in with a bike that literally has his meat and vegetables between a pair of Shiva breasts, while the sister is, like, holding his butt with her boobs. And I'm like, this is just so ridiculous and silly that I enjoy it. Like, I'm just having fun with it. And then suddenly you're fighting Flanators that are fighting these giant whirlwind sirens every time they heal. And knowing that at some point this was play tested and somebody was like, yeah, this is fine. And you can see I'm happy. I am happy because the whole thing is just really fun. And I'm along for the ride. I'm like, yeah, get him, Snow. He's the king. Get him. Here comes the king. The hero can't save everybody. It's like, that's right, king. Nobody can put a stop to you. And from that perspective, I really enjoy it. So I hope you understand where I'm coming from. Let's get on with our last play session, which was... the game very much wears on its sleeve that the whole point of the gameplay splits in terms of the characters constantly being divided amongst each other fulfills two purposes. One, to learn how each other works, because their synergies work very differently, but also to build the relationships between the individuals before they end up in a larger 3-man group or a 4-man group, where you already have their backstory developed, right? In FF14, we just had, like, the Golbear Zero story. It's to build those characters for the payoff later. And I'm fine with it, because they all interact very differently. Like, the story of Saz and Vanille is very murky and difficult, but also the story between Lightning and Snow is difficult, along with the sister. And then you have, like, other characters like Hope, and how he's interacting with Lightning and Snow, and then Snow's relationship with Vanille once he's finding out what's going on there. It's all about interacting with them. But at this point, we're kind of moving together. So we had a little bit of a run through a Prism with Saz and Vanille. Their story is kind of hit its high point and coming to an end. So very quickly, the pacing of this is not that bad. Like, it's a little too long in its combat sections. That's fair, unless you're skipping everything. But ultimately, it's not that bad in terms of story pacing. As they are like, okay, they've hit their high point with the reveal about Vanille's past, or most of it. And now that's done, and Saz has resolved it, and now it's time to meet up with other people. And at the same time, you are meeting up with the rest of the team. You can feel that is imminent, and that is going to happen. So them working through the prism was a lot of fun in Palmacia. We join on the roof of Palmacia, and we're all there. And we are ready to bring down the evil Emperor Palpatine, who is just so blatantly, yes, I am evil. Like, just so over-the-top evil, right? And we were, like, looking at him. And then the lady with the riding crop, and I do forget her name, the lady with the riding crop is like, I will handle these with my pushed-up bra and my riding crop. And just gets murdered immediately. I was like, this is great. I actually thought she was going to be a boss fight. But no, just immediately murdered as the Emperor reveals that I am actually one pulling the strings. Oh, really? No way! The Emperor's a bad guy! Oh my god! I can't believe it! What a twist! It reveals that he is Bartholomew, or Bartandalus, or he's Barty. I was literally sat here with a huge audience going, is he Ifrit? No, we think Ifrit's Impulse. Maybe he's Alexander, because of the high level of tech. Could be. Can't be Garuda, because they say so. And we're all, like, cycling through. Like, it could be Hermes. It might be Hermes. Who is it? It's Bartandalus. Bartandalus is the Lassie, the Farlassie, the Fal'Cie, who is pulling all the strings. And then the story gets a bit more convoluted, which I'm sure many of you in the YouTube section have been waiting for. It gets much more complex than it has been before. And the idea is, the grand scheme is revealed to us as players. The arc is revealed in that long, long ago in a galaxy far, far away, there was some sort of Eidolon or Fal'Cie who was the ultimate one called the Maker. And the Maker created all the Fal'Cies and human life, right? And then left or died or something, but they believe they left. And it's kind of similar in some ways to the FF14 Highland Zodiac story. And I know there's very similar ties to these two games. So the Maker left, and the Fal'Cies would really like it if their god would return. They would be, like, eternally grateful. And they believe that the Maker will not return as long as human life exists. Because if they destroy his creations, or their creation, then the Maker will return. So they want to eradicate all human life, including Cocoon, or mainly Cocoon. There's some ambiguity here as to whether the Pulse are allowed to live, and they just need to eradicate Cocoon. I'm not sure on that, but something along those lines, right? So that's the plan. However, they have a bit of a problem. The Fal'Cie's very nature excludes them from being able to destroy that which the Maker created. So they cannot, even though they have all the power, and they could very easily do it, they cannot eradicate the human life. They can't do it. It's just impossible for them to do, because they are not allowed, or whatever. So their game plan is to manipulate all human life to kill each other. Or to bring about some sort of event, like, you know, bringing all the stars back together, which will cause them to do this, right? It will cause them to kill each other, and therefore they kind of get around this loophole. Is if we can't kill them, but we kind of get them to kill themselves, or we form this group that will ultimately lead to that happening, that's a win-win. We can get our rejoining, everybody's happy. Pretty good stuff. So, things have been set in motion, and one thing I pointed out throughout all this is that Destined Fate is a concurrent theme in Final Fantasy, and I don't like Destined Fate. It's like you can't control your future, you can't make those choices, and I'm sure this is going to go down the route of like, it's not destiny, we can change our path, we can fight for the side of good, and we don't need to do this, which would follow more of a Heidelin story. That's what we need to do. We need to do that. So, that's what's going on. I'm pulling all the strings, and the mere fact that you're here is all part of the plan. As the whole group kind of confronts Barty / Emperor, it was all part of the plan. You've literally done everything we intended you to do. Everybody's played their role, and you're right where we need you to be. That's what's going to happen. And I was like, okay, I'm along with it, and I kind of see where we're going with it. So, in general, that's what's going on, and eventually, I assume Barty or the Maker will be the final boss of the game. Something along those lines. Okay. Then it got a little bit more convoluted. Because I think this was done, if I was to guess from an analysis standpoint, is we do need a big boss fight, and we just killed off Riding Crop Lady. And obviously we can't kill Barty right now. So Barty's off doing his thing, and we all escape, and everything's great and wonderful. As we kind of fly off to one of the arcs, and we discover that there's pulse tech within Cocoon. There's pulse environments deep within Cocoon. And there's like a confusion, which I didn't get amongst the characters. Like, why would there be pulse things here? It's like, because you were used to be one people. Like, surely by now we realize they've divided you. And this whole war is just a scam, right? That should be becoming more apparent to the characters at this point. It can be frustrating in a story where, like, something is kind of apparent to the user, but the players, the NPCs are like, oh, I don't know. This is all a bit confusing. It's like, well, you were obviously part of one unit at some point, right? And so we're working through that as we eventually get rescued by Cid Raines. Sexy, beautiful Cid. Who looks very generic, but he's stupid, sexy Cid. Oh yeah. I'm Cid Raines. And Cid's a bad guy. Oh, again? It's FF6 all over again. Good God almighty. How can this be? Cid is a bad guy. Now, give me some rope on this one, because this is what I believe his reasoning was in a very elaborate cutscene. I will say this before we go too far. His boss fight is awesome. It was really cool. I loved that the way it worked is he kept having phase changes that made you swap your synergies, your paradigms, to counter what he was doing at that point. So sometimes you could push, sometimes you had to be very defensive. He could one-shot you very, very easily. So you had to play around what he was doing constantly and not just get him into stagger and punish him. I don't even think I hit stagger, and I think that was intended, is that you don't really hit stagger. His stagger bar is huge. It's more a case of you outplay what he's doing with your paradigms. It was a really good boss fight and played into FF13's combat system very well. Okay. Why is Cid a bad guy? Because Cid has been helping us earlier on. Okay. Cid has been controlled and knew about Barty for quite some time. And he's also a lessee, which means he has a focus. And his focus is to bring these people together, which is the group of protagonists that we have here. But now he's reached the end. He is sick and tired of playing the puppet for Barty. He doesn't want it. It's not how he's going to go out. And he doesn't want all the people of Cocoon to die because they're his people. And in his mind, given everything he knows, bringing all the protagonists together is what's going to lead to the destruction of Cocoon. And he's not down for it at all. So he is going to break with his destined fate and kill them. Even though he knows they're not bad people, but he's going to kill them because by killing them, that will stop the deaths of everybody in Cocoon because that's what Barty wants, and he's done with following Barty's instructions that will lead to all this calamitous death. Okay. So, of course, we beat Cid. And then, interestingly enough, and I want this expanded on a bit more, because this is kind of where we go up to, is as Cid dies, he sort of tells them to do what's right. Which is like, you still have a chance to not do... He's kind of indicating that you can change your destiny. You can move in a different direction. Like, yes, this is what Barty wanted, and even this hasn't stopped it. Even Cid's intervention, as powerful as he is, he goes full Albert Wesker on us, is not stopping it. But you can choose, you could do your thing as he lays dying. He sort of relents on what he's done. But... He then turns into a crystal, but it's not the same as everybody else. So when you turn into the crystal, it means your focus is complete. So that made sense. Technically, he has fulfilled his role because by fighting the protagonists and actually trying to kill them, he has brought them closer together because struggle and adversity generally brings people closer together. And so even though he tried to stop it by killing us, if he would have won, he didn't, so he turns into a crystal because he fulfills his focus of bringing all the protagonists together. That made sense. However, he then sort of like Obi-Wan Kenobi's and fades into dust almost immediately, which is not what's supposed to happen when you turn into a crystal. So I am confused by that point. I know it seems minor, but it's really awkward. And I guess this is where a lot of you were. In a game that has established quite an elaborate setting, right? And this is the same with any movie. Bring it right back around to that movie buff. A fantasy movie, sets its rules very early, and that's fine. We will accept, right? We will accept the cognitive dissonance of a fantastical world where people can cast magic and do all those kind of things. But the movie must follow the rules of that world for the remainder. Because even though at the beginning of the movie, we're totally fine with accepting this premise, if that deviates for some reason later in the movie, it brings you out of it. I know it seems absurd, but it's a very normal thing to happen. It's like, oh, okay, so you're like a druid, you can turn into this, and you have restrictions, and you can only do it here and there. It's like, let's make it simple. So if you establish early in your movie that your vampires cannot go out in daylight, right? It's a simple rule. It's a premise of this situation. They have to, and then later in the movie, they can, even though nothing's happened. And it just like, wait a minute, no, that doesn't work. That's once we have the rules, you've got to play by the rules, and changing those rules is not going to work. So this is weird to me that Cid's like, I'm a crystal because I fulfilled my focus. That makes total sense. But then the crystal Obi-Wan Kenobi's into dust and is become more powerful than you can possibly imagine, Barty, and disappears off into the world. I don't know what the F is going on there. I have no idea. I have absolutely no clue. So I'm hoping to find out like very, very soon. I don't know. It feels... People always ask me, like, where do you think you are in the game? Because I have no idea how long the game is. It does feel a little bit like we're approaching endgame. Like, the latter third, I would say. It feels like we're there. And I still really have no idea how the end game of this game works. After FF12's massive end game, but that had cities, and it hinted at the end game very early with the hunts and all the extra side quests you could do. There's none of that so far in FF13. So I'm very curious as to how the end game of this game works. But we'll see when we get there. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Love you all. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.